All right, so are you ready to get your hands dirty? Because today we're diving into the world of cake decorating. And it sounds like you want to go way beyond just like basic birthday cakes and really explore, maybe even think about it as a potential career path. You sent over the perfect guide to get us started, Cake Decorating Made Easy. This ebook, it's packed with information like a roadmap through different ways you can learn the techniques, even tips and tricks. But don't worry, we've got an expert with us who's going to help us sort through it all. I'd love for you to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Well, thanks for having me. I was really struck by this ebook, like right off the bat. It lays out, all the different levels of cake decorating. It acknowledges that there's, a whole spectrum from like someone making a cake for a friend's birthday to, professionals designing these elaborate cakes for weddings and big events.
Yeah, and it's really cool how it doesn't assume that you have, tons of experience already. It even starts with like a super simple decorating technique using just a stencil and some confectioner's sugar or cocoa powder. I mean, who knew you could make such cool designs with something that simple? Seems like a really good entry point for beginners.
For sure. And the ebook also gives you a nice overview of icing options. You've got your classic buttercream, the really smooth and like elegant royal fondant, and even cooked icing,
Yeah.
each with their own unique texture and uses.
I was actually surprised by how many like creative possibilities there are when it comes to decorating. It's not just icing. You can use flowers, spun sugar, candy, and you can even shape the cakes themselves into like, hot dogs or pizzas.
Mm.
It really is a world of creativity.
It is. And speaking of different approaches, the ebook also talks about the very famous Wilton method. Have you heard much about Wilton?
I've seen their products at the craft store, but I'm not really familiar with their teaching methods or anything like that.
Well, the ebook goes into, there's history and philosophy. Wilton's been around forever, and they really emphasize hands-on learning. They've got a whole range of courses, from beginner to very advanced. So there's something for everyone.
It sounds like the ebook actually goes beyond just like the basics of the Wilton method, and it even gives you some of their like insider tips and tricks.
Yes. Like, for example, they recommend using certain brands of cake mix, like Duncan Hines, because it gives you a consistent batter volume every time. And did you know they even have a trick for getting cakes to rise higher?
No?
Adding meringue powder, that's the trick. It's these little details that can really up your cake decorating game.
Wow. And they even have tips for like prepping the pan, like using parchment paper so that you can get perfectly smooth sides on your cake. I'm learning so much already.
Me too. And for those who are maybe thinking about turning their cake decorating passion into a career, the ebook also explores the more formal path of going to culinary school.
Yeah, that was something I was curious about. Is culinary school like a necessity if you want to become a professional cake decorator?
It's not always required, but it
Yeah.
can definitely open doors, and it gives you like a really solid foundation in, all the aspects of baking and pastry arts. The ebook mentions some big names, culinary institutions like Le Cordon Bleu, the Art Institute, and Johnson and Wales. Have you ever considered culinary school?
Honestly, it's always been in the back of my mind. The more I learn about cake decorating, the more I think that could be a really fulfilling path.
And the job outlook for cake decorators and bakers looks pretty promising according to this ebook. They mention possible roles like pastry artisan, cake designer, bakery owner, even catering chef. These are all careers that allow you to use your creativity and, your passion for baking.
That's encouraging.
Mm.
But the ebook also makes it clear that Wilton is really just one path in this world of cake decorating. There are so many other schools and courses out there, even online options.
Right, and that's where it gets really interesting. With so many choices, how do you know where to even begin?
Well, luckily, the ebook gives us a few places to start. One option is the Universal Class online cake decorating program. It seems pretty comprehensive, covering everything from basic baking to working with buttercream, royal icing, sugar flowers, and gum paste.
And what's interesting about universal class is that it seems like it's for people who are just interested in, personal enrichment, not just professional training. So it's great for someone who wants to explore their creativity and go at their own pace.
And for those who are looking for something a little more specialized, the ebook introduces a couple of schools, A-J Winbeckler Enterprises and the Amy Malone School of Cake Decorating. Are you familiar with those?
I'm familiar with Winbeckler. They're known for their really intensive programs. They've got these 4-day courses that focus on techniques like cake sculpting and airbrushing. They also have shorter, like 2-day courses for people who just want to focus on like one specific thing.
Okay. Wow, those sound intense. And Amy Malone School seems to have a completely different vibe. They have classes with names like Easy Fun with Chocolate or Derves, which sounds like a delicious detour from cake decorating, and even Peekaboo 3D cookie holiday greeting cards. They seem a lot more whimsical and playful.
It's amazing, how all these schools really cater to different learning styles and interests. It seems like there's really something for everyone, whether you're drawn to that intricate sugar work or more playful designs.
And the exploration of cake decorating schools doesn't stop there. The ebook highlights even more like regional gems, like Do It With Icing and Pattycakes.
Do It With Icing.
Yeah.
Seems like they take a really fun and festive approach with workshops focused on like holiday themes and, techniques like chocolate work and cookie decorating.
Their Christmas-themed workshops sound especially fun.
Oh.
Just imagine learning how to create those elaborate chocolate treats, whimsical fondant characters, and even having a whole Christmas cookie blowout. It sounds like pure holiday magic.
And then Pattycakes offers a really diverse menu of classes. They cover everything from classic cookies and candies to Dominican cake and tres leches. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's like we're on a culinary tour of cake decorating schools. And for those in North Texas, we can't forget the Cake Carousel. They have a really comprehensive curriculum that seems to be designed for all different skill levels.
I like how they use a tiered approach. They offer basic, intermediate, and advanced cake decorating courses. That way everybody can find, the perfect place to start. And they also have specialized classes that focus on, specific techniques like creating royal icing flowers using an airbrush and even 3D figure piping with buttercream.
Wow, that's impressive. And like we mentioned earlier, some schools like Cake Art blend the Wilton method with their own unique offerings. Their marzipan molding class sounds especially intriguing. I could just imagine crafting all these adorable animals and intricate decorations out of that almond paste. Have you ever worked with marzipan?
I have. It's a lot like sculpting with edible clay. It takes some practice, but the results are amazing. And Cake Art also offers a fruit and vegetable garnishing class. Now, that one could come in handy for, taking any dessert or even like a savory dish to a whole new level. I just love how cake decorating can inspire you to explore other, culinary arts and really just expand your creativity.
That's so true. Speaking of expanding our horizons, the ebook also introduces us to a school in Canada called Golda's Kitchen. Their 3-level cake decorating program sounds really thorough, covering everything from the basics to flowers and borders to, mastering fondant and tiered cakes. They even have classes dedicated to specific techniques like gum paste flowers and working with cookies and cupcakes.
It's great how they break it down into like smaller, more manageable chunks. And I like how they have a Discover cake decorating course that seems perfect for beginners. They cover the fundamentals, like how to ice a cake, creating borders, stars and shells, and even piping cute characters.
It sounds like a great way to dip your toes in and get some hands-on experience with those basic techniques. But Golda's Kitchen isn't the only option for learning online. The ebook also highlights a website called the Pastry Whiz. Have you ever used that site?
I haven't personally, but I've heard good things. They offer step-by-step instructions for like a huge variety of cake decorating projects, from really simple techniques to more complex designs.
I was looking through their website, and they even have instructions for things like blowing sugar swans and assembling a Victorian decorated wedding cake. Talk about ambitious.
Yeah.
But they also cover more basic techniques like decorating with paper cones and making marzipan elephants. It's really cool how they make it accessible to people who might not have, all the fancy tools and equipment.
That's so important. It's all about embracing that creativity and, having fun with the process, no matter what your skill level is. And if you're feeling a little overwhelmed by all these schools and websites, the ebook even provides a link to the Open Directory. It's also known as DMOZ.
The Open Directory. Is that like a search engine for cake decorating websites?
Exactly. It's a directory that lists tons of websites that are dedicated to cake decorating, from sites that have detailed instructions like Baking 911 to online communities like Cake Central, where you can connect with other cake enthusiasts and share tips and tricks.
Wow, that's a goldmine of information. I'm starting to feel like we're only scratching the surface here.
I think you're right. And before we move on, I want to point out a couple of practical tips from the ebook that caught my eye.
Oh, I love a good practical tip. What did you find?
Well, Fabulous Foods had this great technique for baking perfectly flat cakes, which is, crucial for getting a smooth icing finish. Have you ever had trouble with, cakes that dome in the middle?
All the time. It's so frustrating. What's their secret?
They recommend tapping the pan on the counter a few times to remove any air bubbles before baking. And then after it goes in the oven, they wrap the pan in a damp towel. And apparently this helps to distribute the heat more evenly so that the cake doesn't rise too much in the center.
That's genius. I can't believe I've never heard of that before.
Yeah.
What other gems did you find?
Well, for those just starting out, eBay Basic Cake Decorating seems like an amazing resource. They have this super comprehensive tool guide with pictures and explanations for all the tools, which is perfect for beginners who are maybe feeling a little overwhelmed. They also provide step-by-step instructions for different decorating techniques and even downloadable guides for using Wilton's novelty cake pans. It's like having a personal cake decorating tutor right there at your fingertips.
That sounds incredibly helpful, especially for someone who's just starting their cake decorating journey. I'm so impressed by how much we've gotten from this ebook already.
Me too. It's really inspiring to see how, cake decorating can be both a creative outlet and a possible career.
Absolutely. It's really a testament to the power of passion and all the possibilities that are out there when you're willing to explore and learn and create.
Yeah.
So before we go to the next part of our deep dive, I'm curious what's resonating most with you? What's got you excited to maybe try your hand at cake decorating? I'm really drawn to the idea of joining a cake decorating community.
Yeah.
The ebook mentioned a few online forums like Cake Central and Sugar Buzz. Seems like a great way to connect with other people, share tips, and maybe even get some inspiration.
Yeah, that's a great point. Learning doesn't have to be, something you do all by yourself. Those online communities can be really supportive and encouraging, especially when you're first starting out.
I also keep thinking back to the Wilton Master Course. 10 days of intensive training sounds incredible. Do you know much about that program?
I've heard great things. It's basically a crash course in all things cake decorating. They cover all kinds of techniques, from the basics to more advanced stuff like flour making and assembling tiered cakes.
From what I read in the ebook, they even offer like a weekend option for people who can't commit to the full 2 weeks, which is pretty cool. Plus, they provide all the supplies, so you don't have to worry about getting everything yourself.
Sounds like they've thought of everything to make it like a really smooth and fun learning experience. Think about you'd be spending 10 days just completely immersed in the world of cake decorating, surrounded by other people who love it and guided by experts. What could be better?
Sounds like a dream come true. And it's not just about mastering the techniques. The ebook mentioned that they also teach you about the business side of things, like how to price your cakes and even potentially starting your own business.
That's such an important part. It's one thing to make beautiful cakes, but knowing how to turn it into, a business is a whole other skill set.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even if you're not planning to go pro,
Yeah.
those business skills could come in handy. If you ever decide to sell your cakes at like a farmer's market or take custom orders from people.
For sure. It's all about empowering people to really explore what they can do with their skills. Speaking of exploring, did you see that list of extra courses they offer during the Wilton Master Course?
Oh, yeah. Introduction to rolled fondant, introduction to sugar artistry, introduction to gum paste. The possibilities are endless.
It's amazing how you can really specialize in certain areas, and it makes sense that Wilton would offer those courses, They're known for those specific techniques.
And speaking of specialized techniques, I keep thinking about those regional schools we talked about. Do It With Icing, in particular, seems like they have a really fun and festive approach.
Their Christmas-themed workshop sounds so fun. Learning to make those fancy chocolate treats, those whimsical fondant characters, and then having a Christmas quickie blowout sounds like so much fun. I can practically smell the gingerbread and peppermint.
I know, right? I can just picture a table full of festive cookies, each one, a little work of art. Speaking of different approaches, Pattycakes also caught my eye. They seem to offer a really interesting mix of classic and culturally diverse baking classes.
Their Dominican cake class sounds really good. I've never had Dominican cake before, but I hear it's super moist and flavorful. And learning to make tres leches from scratch would be amazing.
I agree. It's so great how these schools embrace different traditions and introduce people to new flavors and techniques. It really broadens your horizons. And for those in North Texas, there's the Cake Carousel. Their curriculum seems super comprehensive and designed for all skill levels.
Yeah, I like how they have that tiered approach. Basic, intermediate, and advanced cake decorating courses so that everyone can find a good place to start. And they have those specialized classes that focus on specific techniques like royal icing flowers, airbrushing, and the 3D figure piping. They seem to have it all.
They do. And it's not just about the technical stuff. They even offer a class on pricing and transporting tiered cakes. It's so smart, because it teaches you how to deal with, the practical stuff that comes with making and delivering those big cakes.
Yeah, it's like they're setting you up for success, whether you want to do this as a hobby or turn it into a job. And remember, cake art. They blend the Wilton method with their own unique courses, which I think is cool.
Yeah. Their marzipan molding class sounds so fun.
Hmm.
It would be cool to learn how to sculpt all those intricate decorations and cute little animals out of almond paste. I've always been impressed by how real marzipan figures can look.
It's a real art form. And their fruit and vegetable garnishing class sounds like it could be really useful. Just imagine the designs you could create.
It's amazing how cake decorating can inspire you to try other things and expand your creativity. Speaking of exploring, I'm still really interested in Golda's Kitchen in Canada. Their Discover Cake Decorating course sounds like a perfect way for beginners to get started. They cover the basics like how to ice a cake, making borders, stars, and shells, and even piping little characters. It seems very approachable.
I think that's key for beginners, having that hands-on experience and being able to ask an instructor questions. And their flowers and borders class seems like a natural next step.
Good.
They teach you more intricate techniques like those dimensional rosettes, reverse shells, and rope designs. And they teach you a lot of different flowers.
Yeah, it's like a whole garden of edible flowers. Rosebuds, daisies, daffodils, mums, pansies, sunflowers, zinnias, ferns. And for those who are ready for a challenge, their fondant in tiered cakes course sounds amazing. Imagine learning to create those intricate lace and embroidery details, delicate string work, and those perfectly smooth fondant covering.
It's like the ultimate cake decorating artistry, and it's great that they have other classes on specific techniques like fondant and gum paste, making gum paste flowers, and even fun with cookies and fun with cupcakes. They really cover a lot.
They really do. And let's not forget about those online resources. The Pastry Whiz with all those step-by-step instructions for everything from blowing sugar swans to making a Victorian decorated wedding cake is an amazing resource.
I love how they even include instructions for decorating with paper cones and making those marzipan elephants. It shows you that you don't need a bunch of fancy equipment to make beautiful cakes. It's all about being creative and having fun.
Exactly. And the Open Directory, with its huge list of websites, is like a gateway to a whole community of people who love cake decorating. It's amazing how much information is out there online. And I have to say, those practical tips from Fabulous Foods are game changers. Baking a perfectly flat cake by tapping the pan and wrapping it in a damp towel, and filling a pastry bag without making a mess.
Those are great tips. They can really make a difference when you're just starting out. And eBay Basic Cake Decorating with its tool guide and instructions and downloads seems like a great resource for beginners.
It's like having your own cake decorating coach on your computer. I'm so glad we looked at all these resources. I feel like I know so much more about cake decorating now.
Me too.
Yeah,
Fun.
it really has. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what's sticking with you the most? What are you excited to try?
What's really inspiring me is just how many different things cake decorating involves. It's not just learning techniques, it's also about being a part of a community, expressing your creativity, even learning about how to run a business.
Yeah, it's like when you look at a beautifully decorated cake and you start to see, all the artistry and passion that went into it.
I love that analogy. And speaking of possibilities, I really want to try some of those tips from Fabulous Foods, like that technique for making multicolored borders. Just imagine those swirling colors.
It sounds amazing. And their guide for decorating cookies with royal icing also sounds interesting. I've always wanted to try making those fancy cookie designs, but I've never really had the confidence. Their sugar cookie recipe alone looks worth trying.
Maybe we should have a cake decorating party and try some of this stuff out. But first, I want to talk about something else from the ebook that really stood out. You know how it emphasizes making tools and equipment less intimidating for beginners? Yeah, for sure. eBay Basic Cake Decorating does a really good job with that. Those visual guides and clear explanations can really help people feel more confident about experimenting.
It's like having a virtual teacher guiding you through everything. And their downloads for those Wilton novelty pans, give you so many ideas for making those fun character cakes that kids love.
It reminds you that cake decorating can be, fun and playful. It's a chance to be a kid again and make something that's both beautiful and delicious.
Exactly. And I really like the ebook's message that cake decorating can be a hobby, a business, or even a career.
Yeah, it shows you that when you're passionate about something and you take the time to really learn it, you can do amazing things.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of cake decorating, what kind of cake are you inspired to make? What flavors, techniques, or designs are calling to you?
Let your imagination run wild and see what you come up with.
And don't forget to send us pictures. We can't wait to see what you create. Until next time, happy baking and decorating.
You can download the book for free from our website.